Good morning, everyone. Good morning to each and every one of you on this cold, snowy Lake County morning. It should come as no surprise that you were not deterred by the weather. For this group, this is not your first brave mission. And now, we hope that you've been warmed by the hot breakfast and the irrepressible spirit in this room. I am Liz Rochford. I'm an associate judge here in Lake County and the proud daughter of a veteran of the U.S. Army who served on the front lines in Okinawa in 1944 to 1946 in World War II. And it is my sincere privilege and pleasure on behalf of the entire 19th Judicial Circuit to welcome you to the Veterans History Project 2019. Today marks our 8th annual gathering of U.S. veterans whose personal histories will be elicited by interviewers, memorialized by court reporters' transcription, and ultimately preserved in the U.S. Library of Congress, with a copy also being presented to each interviewee for his or her own personal archive. The veterans who will be interviewed today include service members from every conflict since World War II. The interviewers today include local judges, assistant state's attorneys, public defenders, and private attorneys, some of whom are veterans themselves. The volunteer court reporters who come from this and other counties are among this project's most loyal and important supporters. They're the heart of this program. And this event also enjoys strong backing and patronage from the Lake County Bar Association and the Lake County Bar Foundation. A more comprehensive list of benefactors of this great event are included in our program. And candidly, this room is filled today with dignitaries, but they're not gathered on this occasion for their own recognition. They're instead here to shine the spotlight on each of you, so acknowledgments will be kept to a minimum. But in a slight and surreptitious deviation from the program, we're going to shine that spotlight briefly on two of our own. These are gentlemen who never seek it, but are so deserving of acclaim. And it's secret because if they had had advance warning, they never would have allowed it. Judge John Scully and Judge Michael Foos, I'm going to ask you to please step forward. I know they're here. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to come up here. I'm going to do them both at the same time.
Okay.
And I've also asked Judge Smith to step up and participate in this presentation. Judges John Scully and Judge Michael Foos had distinguished careers in the Navy, then as attorneys, and most recently as judges here in Lake County. Both have made vital contributions in establishing and fostering the Veterans History Project to make it what it is today. Judge John Scully retired from his judicial position earlier this year, and Judge Michael Foos will conclude his term on the bench later this month. These men define the term service with distinction. They'll be presented today with a resolution signed by our Chief Judge, Jay Ukina, and in their name and honor, a $200 contribution is being made to the Lake County Bar Foundation's Veteran Court Fund. Please join us in acknowledging and demonstrating our gratitude to them for their extraordinary and lifelong commitment to public service.
The captain gets the big one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You got a lot more. Well done, guys. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That wasn't on the program.
I know. And I said that we're going to keep acknowledgments to a minimum, but I believe that United States Representative Brad Schneider is here. If not, he will be. He is a very loyal attendee at this program. And for him, this day has special significance as his son is currently serving as an officer in the U.S. Navy. In addition to today's interviewees, this room is filled with other military veterans, and we welcome each and every one of you. Of special note, yesterday, November 10th, was the 244th anniversary of the establishment of the U.S. Marine Corps at Tun Tavern in Philadelphia. And yes, in case you did not know, the birthplace of the Marines was actually in a real tavern and brewery. We wish all the Marines in the house a happy birthday, and I ask Judge Michael Bitar to lead us in the Marine cry of approval. Judge Bitar.
Now, for those of you that are not familiar, it's a guttural sound right from the gut. Right, boys? Right. So on the count of three, we're going to give everyone a big hoorah is how it's spelled. That's really not how it goes. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hurrah! Nice.
Nicely done. That's a great way to get the party rolling. The hot breakfast that you've enjoyed, including the best SOS on earth, was provided by Freedom Farm for Vets, the U.S. Marine Corps League Tri-County Leathernecks Detachment 1395, and Young Marines, all of whom have been slaving over the stove since Oh Dark 30. See how these military terms are just starting to roll off my tongue. And food was additionally provided by Love and Oven, O Brothers Bakery, and Sunset Foods, and we thank them all very much. We have the privilege of having a Gold Star father, Kirk Morris, a member of the Tri-County Marine Corps League, who also, I believe, assisted with breakfast here this morning. His son, Jeffrey Morris, of the U.S. Marine Corps, was killed on April 4th, 2004 in Iraq. And Arlene Lally, Gold Star wife, who lost her husband, Navy Chief Bosun Mate Doyle Hall Parson, who was killed in action on a river in Vietnam in December of 1969. Please feel free to greet and visit with our Gold Star family members, and if we could give them a round of applause and thank them. We also have representatives here this morning from the Lake County Honor Flight. If you are a World War II or Korean War or Vietnam veteran and have not participated in an honor flight to Washington, D.C., to the war memorials, please see these representatives today. We guarantee that that 3-day event will be quite remarkable and memorable experience. We also have Rose Gray and Robin McGarrigle of Lake County Court Services, who have created Quilts of Valor. Each veteran is invited to sign a square of fabric to be included in the current quilt project, which on completion will be displayed in the courthouse. A completed quilt, over here to my left, is currently on display in the window of the law library where Rose and Robin are sitting. So please make sure that you see them before you leave. And our Lake County Bar Association and Lake County Bar Foundation have underwritten many of our expenses of this event, including the services of our wonderful photographer, Ralph Greenslade, and so we thank them for that. And speaking of photographs, after we conclude this ceremony part of this day, we'll be taking a group picture of all the interviewees, and that's going to be on that wall over there, that marble wall where it says Welcome Veterans. So as soon as the program is concluded, please go over there and be a part of that picture. It's such a wonderful memory of today. In the interviewee's discretion, your friends and family are invited to join you in the interview room. You are also welcome to bring your drinks, your coffee, or food if that will make you comfortable, so please don't hesitate to do that. And if you need any assistance of any kind, please don't hesitate to let us know. We have court officers here available and eager to serve you. We are also fortunate to have representatives of the print and electronic media here today, including WGN and Lake County TV. You may be asked to pose for a photo or to make a comment or to allow their presence during a portion of your interview. If they ask you, please know you are free to accept or decline the request. And I also want to advise you of a recent change in regulations which allows veterans to salute even if uncovered and not in uniform. So if you choose to, it is entirely appropriate for you to stand and salute during both the singing of the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. I now invite the members of the Waukegan High School Choir, led by Jennifer Wagner, to perform the national anthem. Beautifully done, thank you. And now I would like to welcome the Lake County Young Marines, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join us in the recitement of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If those young Marines wouldn't inspire you, I don't know what would. Amazing, thank you. You may all please be seated. And I'm going to invite our Chief Judge, Jay Yukina, to extend a special welcome.
Anyway, good morning. And I feel particularly humbled to say good morning to all you veterans here. I myself was not a veteran. I went for a military induction physical in the summer of 1970 because my left arm had been severely burned in a roofing accident. I thought since it was healed, that would be good enough to pass the physical. I did find out at the last station. Is it up? Okay. Is that good enough now, guys? Okay. So it's always good to have some of the judges back there letting me know whether people can hear me or not. Well done, Judge Foose. Anyway, I went into my military induction physical in the summer of 1970 because of some severe burns on my left arm. I thought since it was healed, that would be good enough, but that made me wonder why. But I do have 6 members of my family who are veterans, 4 who participated in World War II and 2 who were in Vietnam. So I have a family of veterans, which I have a great deal of pride of their service to this country. The mission of this Library of Congress project is to collect and preserve and make accessible the personal accounts of servicemen and women such as yourselves so that future generations may hear directly from veterans and better understand the sacrifices each of you have made and the realities of war. We would not be able to achieve this mission without your participation. As you can see from the program, numerous Lake County entities also want to celebrate your service with much gratitude. I thank you for being here today, and I hope you enjoy today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We have a special guest today, Colonel Joseph Bush, retired. 30 years of active duty service in the U.S. Army, and I couldn't begin to detail his achievements and awards, but in brief, I will tell you this. He's commanded infantry units in combat in Operations Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom. He served as Chief of Staff for the NATO training mission in Afghanistan and in Operation Enduring Freedom. His final command was of the 3rd U.S. Infantry, the Old Guard, which is responsible for funerals at Arlington National Cemetery and for guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. He is airborne, air assault, and Ranger qualified, and has received multiple Bronze Stars, Legions of Merit, and 2 Combat Infantryman badges, among other awards. And no less notably, he's the son of a beloved and greatly admired local attorney, Anne Conroy Bush. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Bush. Thank you.
Hey, so thank you very much. I assume everybody can hear me, right? Okay, so the nation's senior service says HUA, just so we're clear on that. Yeah. Now, I also found out, I think you said that I didn't know that the Marine Corps had actually been born in a bar. And now you say that we can take drinks with us into the interview room. So I think there's going to be some very comprehensive interviews today. Now, my understanding, too, is that some, not all, but some people who have spoken in the past have droned on. Now, I'm sure those of you in the military have never heard an officer with a microphone drone on, right? No, we're clear. Any former non-commissioned or petty officers out here? Come on, somebody is. Okay, so I need your help. If I start to drone on, I just need you to go to the nose like this, okay, so I can see. And then that way I'll know that if I talk too long, it's your fault. Hey, so 2 warnings as I start here. I know I'm on the clock, but 2 warnings. First of all, if you're a member of the Lake County Bar Association, you will hear a couple of stories that I have told in the past. I know that's sort of like preaching the choir, but I think sometimes the choir needs a good sermon. The other is, I can get emotional when I'm talking about service. Now, if you know my mom, you know that she will begin to tear up if she sees a cute cat picture. So, there we go. I'm not quite that bad, but if I do start to, my lips quiver or something, generally what I do is I try and think about my grandmother naked. You get the idea, right? Now, several years ago, I was saying goodbye to this infantry battalion I'd been fortunate enough to command, and I was having a little difficulty. And so I told him my trick. And Sergeant Major Baldry, our operations sergeant major, said, "Hey, sir, think about your grandfather naked." Boom, I was back in the moment. So today, I just have 2 things I want to talk to you about. One is why, and one is so what. Pretty simple agenda. So when you talk about why, I think it's important because I believe what it tells you is something about a person's character. What's their passion? What drives them? And I'm going to talk to you today about 2 whys that I have. I need you to imagine 2 images. The first is a stadium. Think about yesterday at almost any college football stadium. There are fans in the stadium, and they're different sizes, shapes, different creeds, religions, their skin, their dress. Everything is different. But they have one thing in common. And that is, at night, when an aircraft flies over their home, they do not for an instant think that it is the aircraft of an invading army. They are those who we serve. The second why is a little more personal for me. And typically when I talk about it, if there is an image, and I need you to think about this in mind's eye, I show the picture of a soldier. He is in combat uniform. Some of his body armor is mismatched. He's got a little that nanny goat peach fuzz that young men seem to mistake for virility. And he has committed the cardinal sin of being a soldier. Anybody know what it is? His chin strap is not fastened. But he is nonetheless a hero. This particular young man was born on the Army's birthday. And for all his life, he wanted to be a soldier. He lives in the United States of America. What a great deal. He turns 18, he enlists, he goes to the center of the known universe at Fort Benning, Georgia, and he becomes an infantryman. As many soldiers during that period of time, he then deployed to Iraq. Now let me pause here and I'll tell you, my experience is there are a couple kinds of tactical environments. I won't tell you there are only two kinds of wars, but my experience is two kinds of tactical environments. One is where you can see a long way. If you are vigilant, you have something of a sense of security because you know what's coming at you. Now, your adversary probably has long-range weapons, so that sense of security may be a bit naive, but nonetheless, it gives you a bit of calm. The other environment is where you're close up on things, where there are buildings, there are walls, there are things very close by. There may also be people who are not merely adversaries or friendly, but they're somewhere in the middle. It is uncertain, and it causes butterflies in your stomach and a dull headache in your head. Now, this young man I was talking about had deployed to Iraq, and he was the gunner in a Humvee. There were 4 soldiers inside, and he was the one standing up through that hole in the roof, manning the main weapon. And as they were driving along through this tight area in Iraq, I believe he felt the same thing, butterflies in his stomach, a little bit of a dull headache in his head. He wasn't sure what was around the next corner, what danger could present itself at any moment. Someone threw a grenade, it flew through the air, it bounced on the top of the Humvee, and it went through the gunner's hatch. He was well trained, so he yelled, "Grenade," and from what I understand, he took his hands off the weapon and put them on the top of the vehicle. He was going to exit the vehicle. U.S. grenades have about 6 ounces of composition B explosive in them. They're cased in steel, and they're designed to explode and throw shrapnel in all directions. If one is going to go off, you don't want to be there. Let me pause in the story for a minute and talk to you just a touch more about grenades. Grenades explode 3 to 5 seconds after you release them. Now, if you look at my college transcripts, you will see that I don't deserve any accolades in math, but I'm thinking about the path of that grenade, maybe a second or so in the air, a half second or so for him to notice it and yell "grenade," maybe a fraction of a second after that. This young man had 1 to 2, yeah, see, this is the math thing, had 1 to 2 seconds to decide what he was going to do. So my take is when that happens, you don't have an opportunity to think of courses of action or decide which one will work better in the long run or not. I think what happens is you respond how you are hardwired. In this particular case, Ross McGinnis dropped down on a grenade and he covered it. It exploded and he was killed. The other 4 people in the vehicle were not. You think about that, how fortunate are we that we have people like that? And those are my 2 whys. Those we serve and those with whom we serve. Now, I told you why and so what. The cool thing is the so what is easy, and that is our country can't survive without service and sacrifice. It ceases to exist. A republic withers and dies without service. I'm fortunate enough right now in my spare time to be the executive director of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier Foundation. It's a nonprofit foundation, and we are focused on rekindling a national ethic of service, on renewing America's respect and admiration for service. And on this day, 2 years before the centennial of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, something that we are trying to hold up as an example of service and sacrifice to our nation, I would ask you, those who have served, those who are serving, and those who aspire to serve, to help us make the commemoration of the centennial of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier a landmark. Make it a truly national commemoration so that you too can help us renew a national ethic of service and rekindle America's respect and admiration for service. So the words that everybody is looking for when somebody's at the front of the microphone. In conclusion, I once worked for a great boss who, when he signed off, he would say, "I'll meet you on the high ground." Two things about that I like. One is there's a confidence in it. It's not one of these things, well, you know, maybe you'll get there, maybe you won't. It's a certainty. That whoever says it depends on their teammates. The other is, it is not a statement of, hey, you go to the high ground. You know, you clean this latrine and I'll come back. No, it's a statement of teamwork. We will be there together. I would ask you to think about how we together can help our fellow citizens renew a national ethic of service and rekindle admiration and respect for service. I think a way to do that is make the centennial of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier a truly national commemoration. For me, that's the high ground. I'll meet you on the high ground. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for those wonderful insights and inspiring comments. And now we are at the point in the program, the highlight and purpose of our gathering today, the introduction of today's veteran interviewees. Please know, the military experience and awards have been significantly edited because of time constraints. All of today's honorees were recognized with various awards, medals, and ribbons. And whether the veteran served in active combat or in a support capacity, he or she was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for our country if needed. And each deserves our highest respect and appreciation. When I read your name, I'll ask you to either raise your hand or stand. And I'm going to, as eager as we are to acknowledge each of these veteran interviewees today, I'm going to make an appeal to you to please reserve your applause until all of the names have been read, so that we may give them their due recognition as a united group. William Russell Bailey, U.S. Navy, 1945 to 48, served in the Pacific on the USS Harry Lee and LST-400, transporting Marines to the Philippines to reinforce the buildup of U.S. forces under MacArthur. The USS Harry Lee was said to be one of the first ships to enter Manila Bay and then Tokyo Bay for the occupation of Japan. Francis L. Sheehan, U.S. Naval Academy graduate, U.S. Navy 1944 to 1946, served in the Pacific as commanding officer of LSM 117 in the Philippines, preparing for the invasion of Japan. Thomas Atchison, U.S. Army World War II veteran who served in Europe, including fighting in the Ardennes and Rhineland. He was recalled to service for the Korean War, 1950 to 1951. Lyle Spratt, U.S. Army, 1951 to 1953, served in rail transport during the Korean War. John C. Muno, Sr., U.S. Marine Corps, served 1950 to 1953 in Dog Company, 2nd Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division, in Europe and in Korea for the Nevada Outpost. Philip Charles Wicklin, U.S. Marine Corps for active duty, 1959 to 1961. Marine Corps Reserve, 1964 to 1970, served at Quantico, Virginia, and Okinawa. Martin G. Lampert, U.S. Navy, served from 1962 to 1966. Mr. Lampert served in the Vietnam War on 2 different ships. William L. Bishop, Lieutenant, U.S. Navy, active 1963 to 1969. USNR until 1972. 3 tours in the Vietnam War, Underwater Demolition Team, UDT 22, and as Operations Officer with SEAL Team 2, 104 combat missions. His qualifications and training included UDT, Halo, Ranger, nuclear weapons, combat medical training, numerous awards including 4 Bronze Stars with Combat V and a Purple Heart. Daniel R. Bulacek, active duty with U.S. Navy Reserve 1965 to 68 in the Vietnam War, on board the USS Chukwan and USS Graphius, off the coast of Vietnam, including in Operation Market Time, Yankee Station, Cam Ranh Bay, Chu Lai, and shore duty of Operations Desert Shield and Deny Flight, and numerous airlift support ops in the United States Air Force Reserve. Joseph E. Novacek, U.S. Navy from 1966 to 1969 in support of the Commander Operational Test and Evaluation Force in Norfolk, Virginia, on board the USS Valcour and USS Assurance in the Mediterranean and Bahrain. Philip John Roving, U.S. Air Force on active duty from 1969 to 1974. Aircraft commander and co-pilot flying 500 sorties with the 311th Tactical Airlift Squadron in Vietnam, delivering passengers, fuel, food, medical supplies, blood, and relocating deceased combat troops to Da Nang. He and his squadron also helped support the China Beach Orphanage in Da Nang. After leaving active duty, he joined the Iowa Air National Guard, where he served until 1992, ultimately achieving the rank of lieutenant colonel. John Garand, First Lieutenant, U.S. Army, 1969 to 1972, Vietnam, Bronze Star for exceptional performance in Chu Lai, South Vietnam, October of 1971. Richard McEwen, U.S. Air Force, active duty 71 to 77, pilot and instructor of the F-111 Tactical Fighter, 27th Tactical Fighter Wing, 524th Tactical Fighter Squadron, Vietnam War and bombing campaign against Khmer Rouge, Phnom Penh, Cambodia. During training over New Mexico, he and his weapons officers survived a high-altitude ejection over 1,100 mile per hour from their malfunctioning aircraft. Jeff S. Bedore, U.S. Air Force, Army, Navy, 1990 to 2015. Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, both in Germany and Afghanistan. He also served on a presidential security detail. Christopher Lopez, U.S. Navy, 1999 to 2012, serving in the USS Abraham Lincoln, USS Ford, Second Gulf War, Operations Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom. Christopher Kaspersky, U.S. Army, 2009 to 2012, served in the 630th Engineering Company, 7th Engineer Battalion. He survived 3 IED strikes to his RG-31 vehicle while serving as a gunner, mine detector, and as a dismounted tunnel rat in route clearance operations in Kandahar, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Mario J. Sankis, U.S. Marine Corps, 1999 to 2003, assigned to the Presidential Helicopter Squadron, Presidential Guard for Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. Joseph P. Bush, who we previously acknowledged. Thomas L. Frey, Senior Chief Petty Officer, U.S. Navy, 1960 to 83. Served 2 tours in Vietnam with the Seabees, including assignments in the Mekong Delta and an assignment in an Army advisory team. Also assigned aboard the USS Wasp. Mitchell Siegel, U.S. Army, 1970 to 72. Medical Corpsman Information Specialist. As assigned to military hospitals, he assisted wounded soldiers returning from Vietnam. Excuse me. William T. Kirk, First Lieutenant, U.S. Army Air Corps, 1943 to 1944. Served as a B-17 Flying Fortress gunner, bombardier, and assistant navigator. He flew 35 bombing missions over Germany, surviving heavy flak, anti-aircraft fire, and fierce attack by the Luftwaffe fighters. At the same time, his father was serving in the U.S. Navy in England, and his uncle, Vice Admiral Alan G. Kirk, was in charge of all U.S. naval operations off Normandy on D-Day. Brian Joseph Capel, Major, United States Marines, 1988 to 2008. Naval aviator, helicopter pilot, air ops officer, pilot instructor, served in Operations Restore Hope, Continue Hope in Somalia, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, Distant Runner in Rwanda, Burundi. Albert W. Moyer, Jr., U.S. Army, 1967 to 1970, 199th Infantry Brigade, Xuan Loc, Vietnam. Richard B. McFarland, Master Sergeant, U.S. Army, 1957 to 1984, served overseas in Vietnam, Japan, Germany, recipient of multiple awards. Ronald M. Mitten, U.S. Army attached to U.S. Air Force, 1953 to 1955, served as combat engineer, 808th Engineer Aviation Battalion, Korea, Okinawa. George L. Coyle, U.S. Army Captain, Staff Judge Advocate, active duty 1970 to 75. During the Vietnam War, he served in Fort Knox and Fort Sheridan, as well as Da Nang, Vietnam, where he was awarded the Bronze Star. He also served in the U.S. Army Reserve from 75 to 94, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. And Christine A. Casey, U.S. Army active duty 1975 to 1984. Staff Sergeant Casey served as a military police officer at several military installations in Italy, Germany, and in the United States. I hope you will forgive me my mispronunciations, but please join me now in enthusiastically celebrating our veterans. I promised I wouldn't cry, but you're really pushing me here. This is just so inspiring. I'm going to now recall the Waukegan High School Choir to lead us in God Bless America. You may be seated for one more minute, and again, we are at that point of in conclusion, which I know you will be happy to hear. But before you depart with your interviewers, I'm going to direct you. I'm not used to giving orders to veterans, but I am going to today. I'm going to direct you to the wall where it says "Welcome Veterans" to take the group photo. You will not regret, and you'll receive a copy of that great photo. Also, remember to sign a square for the quilt. Stop for an individual photo with your interviewee and your court reporter if you'd like to, and Ralph Greenslade will assist you with that photo. Again, you are welcome to bring your food or your drinks to make yourself comfortable. Your families are welcome in the interview room. I want to thank you from the bottom of our collective Lake County 19th Judicial Circuit hearts for making our Volunteer History Project events such a great success. Thank you for your service. God bless America, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.